Think of a government that wakes up one morning and decides, right, from today no more tuk-tuks, no more matatus, no more minibuses, and no more motorcycle taxis. We will modernize everything. Sounds bold, heroic, and visionary, right? Give it 24 hours and the entire city will collapse. Commuters stranded, streets jammed, office attendance drops by 60%, school absences skyrocket. The formal system, if it exists at all, melts like butter in desert sun. Why? Because informal mobility is the economic bloodstream of developing cities. Banning it is like trying to remove the engine from a moving car because you don't like the noise. Today I'm unpacking why informal transport can't simply be banned, not for political reasons, but for economic ones. Let's dive into the financial machinery behind the chaos. I'm Pushpat Masumi, it's Urban History. Let's start with the shocking truth. In most African and Asian cities, informal transport carries more passengers than the formal system by far. There are some examples. In Nairobi, matatus move 60% plus of all daily trips. In Cairo, minibuses carry 40 to 50% of all commuters. In Lagos, Danfo minibuses handle 12 million daily trips. In Manila, Jeepneys serve over 40% of all commuters. And in Jakarta, angkot minibuses fill the transit gaps beyond BRT. Now ask, if you ban these vehicles, what replaces them tomorrow morning? Not buses because the government doesn't have the fleet, not metro because it doesn't reach most places, not ride-hailing, too expensive, not walking, distances too huge. People would simply stop moving. Cities don't run on buses. Cities run on whatever moves people most efficiently today, right now, even if it's loud, unregulated, and painted like a disco on wheels. Governments often forget this, but reality doesn't. Formal transit is expensive to build and expensive to run. Think about costs. A single metro line can cost between $100 and $300 million per kilometer. A new BRT system requires stations, buses, depots, staff, maintenance, and lane reconstruction. Operating subsidies typically cover 30 to 70% of running costs. Now compare with informal systems. Informal transit costs governments almost nothing. Operators buy the vehicles, operators maintain them, operators fuel them, operators pay themselves. Government costs close to zero. It's privatized mobility at national scale. That's why banning it creates a financial crisis. Governments suddenly have to replace millions of daily trips at their own expense. It's easy to criticize informal transit until you see the invoice for replacing it. A metro creates jobs, yes, but informal transport creates far more and far more rapidly. Examples: in Manila, Jeepneys sustain 600,000 jobs. In Nairobi, matatu industry employs over 350,000 people. In Lagos, Danfo sector provides livelihoods for almost 500,000 people. In Cairo, minibus drivers plus fare collectors equals hundreds of thousands of people. This industry absorbs migrants for rural areas, people without formal education, low-income workers, youth in need of income, and entire families who depend on one vehicle's daily revenue. If a government bans these modes without a transition plan, it doesn't just ban vehicles. It bans income for a significant percentage of its working population. Imagine banning the informal sector in a city where half the economy is the informal sector. Exactly. It's economic self-sabotage. Why do matatus, tuk-tuks, and minibuses dominate? Because they operate according to demand, not schedules. They go where people actually live, not where a master plan imagined people would live. They adjust instantly to peak hours. More vehicles appear when demand rises. They serve low-density areas profitably. Public buses can't cover those areas without subsidies. They adapt to congestion, take shortcuts, change routes, improvise. Governments cannot match the agility. Formal transit is like a slow-moving elephant. Informal transit is like a swarm of extremely energetic, slightly reckless bees. Urban mobility is a jungle. Only the fastest systems survive. This point often gets ignored. A typical commuter in Nairobi, Jakarta, Cairo, Manila, and Dhaka spends 10 to 30% of income on transport. Informal transport is often the cheapest option. If you ban it, commuters must shift to ride-hailing, which is too expensive, formal buses with limited availability, or walking far distances. Transport cost inflation hits the poor hardest. The government that bans informal transit essentially says, sorry, being poor is now illegal. Remember urban sprawl from the previous episodes? Cities like Cairo, Nairobi, Johannesburg, Jakarta, Lagos, and Manila grew horizontally, unpredictably, and chaotically. No planned transit corridors, no structured feeder networks, and no grid. Informal transit developed to meet people exactly where they are, deep in informal settlements, far from main roads, in expanding suburbs, beyond metro stations, and beyond BRT lines. A city shaped like spaghetti cannot be served by a metro shaped like a straight line. Informal transport is the sauce that keeps the spaghetti together. Governments often say, we'll phase out informal vehicles in 3 years. Great, but commuters don't attend press conferences. They choose whatever is available, whatever is cheap, whatever is close, and whatever arrives faster. Informal transport succeeds because it satisfies real demand. Governments can announce, plan, and declare anything, but demand is created by people's homes, people's jobs, people's wallets, geography, street networks, and daily movement patterns. You cannot ban a system that responds to these forces unless you replace it with something better, cheaper, and equally flexible. Governments rarely can. Let's look at countries that tried banning or replacing informal modes. Manila attempted to phase out jeepneys, then nationwide protests. Drivers feared losing their livelihood. South Africa tried formalizing minibuses. Mixed results. Costly, slow, and created political tension. Cairo attempted microbus regulation. Widespread evasion. People preferred flexibility. Jakarta replaced some anchored routes with BRT. Many anchored still operate. They formed feeder lines instead of disappearing. Rwanda tried regulating motor taxis, only partial compliance. Hundreds still operate informally. Formal interventions often fail because operators resist, riders resist, implementation is expensive, enforcement is inconsistent, and demand doesn't align with top-down planning. You cannot remove an ecosystem by decree. You must design a new one that people want. Let's be fair, governments aren't evil. They face real challenges, safety problems, old vehicles, and reckless driving, traffic chaos, stopping anywhere, competing aggressively, pollution, old diesel engines, revenue loss, informal operators pay little tax, urban image, cities want modern aesthetics, but banning is not the answer because economics will fight back. Most successful strategies around the world include fleet modernization, replacing old vehicles with safer, cleaner, regulated fleets. Digitalization, GPS tracking, mobile payments, route mapping. Cooperatives and associations, organizing operators into manageable units. Moving to semi-formal status, hybrid operations, privately run, publicly regulated. Integrating with BRT and MRT, building feeder networks rather than eliminating operators. Electrification, e-tuk-tuks, e-minibuses, e-motorcycles, leading to lower emissions and lower fuel costs. Designated stops and corridors, reducing chaos without removing the system. And incentives, not punishments. Subsidies for new vehicles, not bans on old ones. Modernization works because it respects the economic foundations of the system. Governments often treat informal modes as temporary, undesirable, primitive, illegal, and chaotic. But economically and functionally, they are public transport, not just government-operated public transport. They are demand-driven, hyper-efficient, adaptable, entrepreneurial, deeply embedded, and socioeconomically essential. They emerged because cities needed them. They remain because cities rely on them. You cannot ban the backbone of mobility, but you can strengthen them. The Global South, informal mobility moves the most people, costs governments the least, creates enormous employment, adapts to massive urban sprawl, serves low-income communities, survives political cycles, and fills service gaps instantly. Banning it would cause economic breakdown, social unrest, and transport failure. The future isn't about choosing between formal and informal. The future is about making the informal more formal, without killing what makes it work. Think of informal transit like a street food vendor, a bit chaotic, a bit unregulated, sometimes surprisingly efficient, occasionally questionable, but absolutely essential. Thanks for watching. Next episode in Module 2 is Can Paratransit be Formalized? Real policy approaches and global case studies. Until then, remember, mobility is not about laws. Mobility is about livelihoods. And sometimes the most efficient transportation system is the one that wasn't planned at all.